Friends, Brian here for Yes You Can Play Guitar, and of course, our favorite guest and great friend of the channel, the Solitary Adventurer, is with us once again. We're going to have a little chat about Prince. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, very well, thank you.
I was wondering, there's always a lot of topics about Prince, and I was saying to you before about how, like with other famous artists or bands, you could really research and within a few weeks kind of know everything you need to know. And the Ride with Prince, the more we do this and the more I talk with people in the comment section, Patreon, this is going to be an endeavor for years, and I'm enjoying the ride. And I'm very glad to have this as part of the channel here. One of the things I want to talk about today is just maybe, we could just two guys talking about Prince's approach to equipment. And one of the things I know, coming more from a hard rock heavy metal background, that kind of fascinates me is I guess I still naturally kind of think of Prince more, although he's an amazing guitar player, the funk aspect of it. And it's just weird. Around the mid 80s, I think he started using the EMG pickups. I think was it the 81s or in the bridge pickup, and they're kind of tend to be more known for like the heavier bands. I know like the guys from Metallica use those pickups or a similar arrangement. Same thing with the guys in Slayer, Zakk Wylde from Ozzy Osbourne, I think has his own line of EMG pickups, but he used those types of pickups for a while. Mesa cabinets, which are, again, you kind of equivalent those to like a heavy, and he's always had amazing guitar tone. So I'm just kind of thinking like, I kind of think like he's a well-rounded guitar player, but like as a funk guitar player, but then he's kind of choosing equipment more. As a guitar player, I'm looking at that going, that really interests me. Like, what's your take on his perspective towards equipment? Maybe not just for himself with guitar, but maybe with some of the other band members, things that you've heard or researched over the years.
Yeah, at the guitar side of it, I kind of struggle with, because especially with you being a guitar guy, this stuff inside out, and I've just picked up the odd brand name and things that I've seen in the background. They don't really mean as much to me, but I do think that there's been periods where I think he's consciously gone and got the equipment that sort of speaks to a certain genre of music or a certain audience.
Yeah.
So if you take the beginning of When Doves Cry, I would say he's quite clearly going after that Eddie Van Halen sound that was so popular at that same time.
Yeah.
So here you've got a virtuoso guitar guy who's making chart ingress with his band. Here's Prince saying, okay, well, look, I know I'm a great guitar player. You need to know that I'm a great guitar player. So perhaps he picks heavier equipment for that in order to access that audience. But I've kind of struggled throughout the years to thread the line with his approach to gear. And I'm going to tread on a lot of toes here with people who know specifics about, this guitar they used and this decision that he made. But there was one aspect that kind of caught my curiosity when I was looking into it. And it was two stories that sort of spoke to me. Now, the first one is Maurice Hayes when he joins the New Power generation. Maurice is the keyboard player for 20 years from that point on and off. And he said he hadn't been in the camp long, and he sort of pulled Prince aside and said, boss, my keyboards are better than yours. And I'm a gigging musician. This is my first, sort of big paying job. But you're Prince, you should have the best of everything. And Prince's kind of, typical Prince response was, here's the credit card, go buy what you think I need. And then it made a bit of a rod for Maurice's own back, because Maurice had to know then how to use all that equipment.
Yes.
Automatically, muscle memory kind of way. Because in the middle of a song or rehearsal, Prince would say, I want this, and then Maurice would need to know how to do it. But I found that quite curious, that why didn't he have that top of the line, latest technology? And I just came down on the side of, I think it was because he was so comfortable with what he knew, that anything new that come out, there's that period of time that you have to dedicate to it in order to become great at it.
Yes.
At what point would he be more efficient on the new thing than he was on the old thing?
Yeah.
And that reminded me of a second story that we only learned last year or the year before, when Welcome to America, which was an album he'd done in 2010, but was held over in the vault, never to be released. and the estate put it out as a posthumous release because the lyrical content spoke to what we're going through today with, the racial issues that America's been seeing and that kind of aspect. So he hired a drummer and a bass player, 2 top musicians. I want to say Chris Coleman. I know it's Chris something, but the surname is not feeling very definite under my tongue there.
Sure.
But when Chris arrived at Paisley Park, he was given the credit card again to go buy the drum kit he'd like to play on for that week of sessions. So he went into downtown Minneapolis and he went on a bit of a spending spree. Yeah. And when he returned, he said he was assembling the last of the cymbals, and he sort of saw this Egyptian cotton appear, or finest Italian silk appeared in front of him as he's bent over fixing this thing up. And it was Prince who merely stood over him and said, "I wondered what color it would be that you bought." So there's these aspects. And then a third story's just popped into mind that Susan Rogers tells, where there was a very, very big guitar rig guy. Like this is the rig that everybody has. It's the height of technology in about 84, 85, that sort of range.
Probably, I'm going to take a guess here. Probably say it's Bob Bradshaw because he was designing all the big racks for everyone at that time, but
quite possibly. And I don't know if she ever named him directly.
I'm just guessing, guys. Yeah, don't nail us.
Could well be.
Yeah, we're just chatting.
But Susan tells the story of him flying out to Chanhassen outside of Minneapolis. He spends an entire day setting up this rig. Eventually Prince starts to lose patience. So Susan says to this guy, you're going to have to just show him what you've got. So considering the expense of he's flown him out, all the rig, the guy spent all day setting it up. Prince walks in, picks up the guitar, and he says, "Okay, put me on something." So he puts him on a sound, a setup. He starts playing, and then he said, "Okay, and now I want this." He said, "Oh, no, you program in what you're going to need at each stage, and then it'll trigger on the time when it's been programmed to." And he just quietly took the guitar off and just stepped out the room, said to Susan, "Send him home."
Yeah.
Because that's not how Prince played guitar, right? Prince would be like, "I'm in the middle of this and I kind of want to stop it on the one and go to something else." So I think between those 3 stories, you can probably piece together something to do with the mindset of how he approached some of the instruments. Were they the best that money could buy, or were they tools that a mercenary would need in order to get the sound that he had in his head?
Well, again, I've alluded to this through the channel. I like things really simple. I had my time in maybe the late 90s or early 2000s where I had a rack mount and I programmed everything. I had it all connected by MIDI with a foot switch. But the reality is I always go back to, I did a reaction video to Vernon Reid from Living Color. Like his live rig was so insane. I'd never seen anything like that. I thought it was a joke. But the thing is, and maybe it's a getting older thing, but that tinkering, having to program, like I got this here. I'll bring it out sometime, but it's a really neat thing from Eventide. And it's a compact, they make some of the best effects, harmony, intelligent harmony units. And it's a great little thing. I think it's called an H9. And it's just been sitting there for, going on 9 months. Like there's so much in it, and I just don't want to tinker. I just don't want to spend a day or a couple of days. I just like Prince does in his setup. He's got a few pedals, and he has a good amp, good guitar, and he has a whammy pedal, which is really interesting that he uses one. I've talked about that in a lot of the reaction videos. But the pedals, I just like having some basic setups, saying, okay, this is my clean, this is my lead, this is my rhythm, and maybe one other one. And then, I got my wah pedal, that's it. And I'm going to do some more in-depth videos about that. I know I've been saying that for a year, but so I think Prince kind of liked it by his setup, simple, but he's got really good high-end stuff, like his guitars.
Yeah.
I've seen that he used Mesa cabinets, and I've had a lot of wonderful people send me a lot of articles on his different guitar setups. I want to also make a note about EMG pickups very quickly for people that are in guitars. don't know a lot about guitars, they have what are called pickups. There's little square things by the bridge and by the neck. And you have what are called passive pickups and you have active pickups. Passive pickups, basically the way an electric guitar works, you hit the string, it makes a vibration. There's a pickup is, a magnet with coil wrapped around it. It picks up the vibration and turns it into electric signal, sends it out to the amp. A passive pickup, that's what it does. An active pickup, which like I believe at least the 81s or the 85s that he uses, it's called an active one. There's a battery in it to send extra signal to push to make it a stronger signal sent out.
Right.
So the EMG pickups, he was using the 81s or the 85s. You don't really see funk guitar players use them. It's just really interesting. Heavier bands tend to use it. Go to EMG TV. That's their YouTube channel. They have guests on there all the time. It's mainly metal artists with really heavy guitar tones doing that. And he has a great guitar tone. He's got a ripping guitar tone, his clean tones, his funky tones. He's just mind blowing. It's just, to me, he's so unique in so many ways. You and I could talk for 2 weeks and record it. Not that there'd be many people watching that if we talked for a full week, but that was just something that really interests me. Like I'm doing these reaction videos, goes, man, like that's so neat that he's using that setup. Like he was just so unique in so many different ways. So any last notes about his equipment before we sign off on this one?
I mean, I can think of 24 rehearsals that are, out there in the ether, if you want to go find them, where you hear him telling band members how to use a piece of equipment. So clearly he's been putting the hours in, behind the scenes. I've got a rehearsal that he did alone in his home studio with the Lindrum when the Lindrum had just come out.
Yeah.
Now the Lindrum was, I don't know, the equivalent of maybe like £50,000 in today's money, but he was one of the first to have them. I don't have many from like 2008 where that's the case. And I think it just comes down to a natural, do you try and stay at the vanguard, or do you decide, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to, and I'm happy with what I've got. They're the tools I've got. But I do wonder every time he had a new band, like Third Eye Girl, or another incarnation of the New Power Generation, was that maybe part of the template? I know what they're going to look like. I know what the sound's going to be. I know what the equipment needs to be for that sound. So perhaps it was just part of the whole appeal, the fashion of that era.
And one of the things I want to say too, for Third Eye Girl, my uneducated guess would be, oh yeah, he had a big say on what people are wearing, what they look like, what they were going to sound like. That's my opinion. And I want to tell everyone out there, when we have these discussions, like, when we kind of first started doing this, I was the one that called the Solitary Adventurer the super fan, and then I kind of took it down. I didn't mean to offend people. I know Prince, there's a lot of Prince fans are very, very passionate, and I understand that. But also understand these are discussions. I'm learning, we're talking, I'm giving my own viewpoints. Sometimes, and we both have a sense of humor. So sometimes people don't take everything we say like completely 100% like to heart. I just want to, it's all in good faith, remembering a great artist and just talking about, a fantastic musician that, we probably won't ever see again, of that caliber, of that uniqueness. One last question, a little bit of tongue in cheek, folks. I just want to, when he would offer a band member a credit card and say, go get what you need, do you know if the band member was able to actually retain that equipment after he stopped working for Prince, or was it only when he was working for him? And this is, I'm kind of being a little bit silly. Did the equipment eventually go into the Egg Building at Paisley Park?
You might be right on both accounts. Okay. I don't think they got to retain it. I'm sure certain things were probably retained, but it seemed the view that I take of it is that was Paisley Park equipment then. It's effectively of the studio.
And that would make sense too. That would make sense to me.
And then there's the other part of me that thinks they probably weren't going into the Egg Building because the Egg Building was reasonably dilapidated and still is. Yeah, so I know they found a room with tens of guitars. And I know he had them when he had a house in LA. He had a guitar of Elvis's that he used to try and impress Kristen Chenoweth.
Okay.
The actress, who, at the time was quite a big name in one of the productions she was starring in. And in an effort, I think, to woo her, because he'd, solo dinner at the house, and he's pulling out all the stops to impress her.
Mhm.
She said something about Elvis, and he said, well, put that guitar on. And she said, oh, it's scratched on the back. He said, yeah, that's where his belt buckle was.
Oh,
And she's like, whose belt buckle?
yeah.
Elvis's. He had one of Elvis's guitars, you know?
Yeah.
So I think he was, as always, multifaceted with all of these things.
Absolutely. Guys, what do you think? Comment below. Remember, we're two guys talking, just keeping a great memory of a great musician alive. And let us know what you think. Remember, practice hard, but practice smart. We'll see you soon.